latest victim of Ronan Farrow was Eric Schneiderman. So Eric Schneiderman is a guy you probably haven't heard of. He's the New York Attorney General. If you're in New York, you've heard of him because he's a publicity-seeking publicity hound. He's been going after high-profile targets for a long time. He hasn't really done any good. His biggest win is that he shut down a bunch of fan draft, the gaming sites, basically online gambling sites in 2015 for like a couple of months. But he was supposed to be one of the future governors of New York State. He had sort of an Eliot Spitzer path that was laid out before him. Worth noting, by the way, that this now makes the 3rd out of 5 major elected officials in New York State to have to resign for sexual allegations in the last, 7 years, right? We've got Anthony Weiner, you've got Schneiderman, and you've got Eliot Spitzer. Okay, it's in the last 5 years alone. It's just an amazing thing. Here's what Ronan Farrow reported over at The New Yorker. And I don't know how Ronan Farrow has all these sources, but now he does. It's pretty amazing. Schneiderman, New York's Attorney General, has long been a liberal Democratic establishment of women's rights, and recently he has become an outspoken figure in the Me Too movement against sexual harassment. As New York State's highest-ranking law enforcement officer, writes Farrow, Schneiderman, who is 63, has used his authority to take legal action against the disgraced film mogul Harvey Weinstein and to demand greater compensation for the victims of Weinstein's alleged crimes. Last month, when the Times and this magazine were awarded a joint Pulitzer for coverage of sexual harassment, Schneiderman issued a congratulatory tweet praising, quote, the brave women and men who spoke up about the sexual harassment they had endured at the hands of powerful men. Without these women, he noted, there would not be a national critical reckoning underway. Well, now he's got a problem. As his prominence as a voice against sexual misconduct has risen, so too has the distress of 4 women with whom he has had romantic relationships or encounters. They accuse Schneiderman of having subjected them to non-consensual physical violence. All have been reluctant to speak out, fearing reprisal, but 2 of the women, Michelle Manning-Barish and Tanya Selvarantam, have talked to The New Yorker on the record because they feel that doing so could protect other women. They allege that Schneiderman repeatedly hit them, often after drinking, frequently in bed, and never with their consent. Manning-Barish and Selvaratnam categorized the abuse he inflicted on them as assault. They did not report their allegations to the police at the time. Both say they eventually sought medical attention after having been slapped hard across the ear and face and also choked. Selvaratnam says that Schneiderman warned her he could have her followed and her phones tapped, and both say he threatened to kill them if they broke up with him. Schneiderman, of course, denies all of these allegations, but resigned literally 3 hours after the story broke. So a couple of things worth noting here. People in positions of power can do really horrible things, which is why it is deeply important that we have institutional checks on power. Okay, when you have people who have the capacity to ruin your life with a phone tap, when you have people like Schneiderman running the Attorney General's office and threatening people, it's really, really dangerous. And this is why so many people ought to be more skeptical of power. It's why more people ought to be libertarian when it comes to the use of government power and the restraints on government power. A third former romantic partner of Schneiderman's told Manning-Barish and Selvaratnam he also repeatedly subjected her to non-consensual physical violence, but she told them that she is too frightened of him to come forward. The New Yorker has independently vetted the accounts they gave for allegations. The 4th woman, an attorney who has held prominent positions in the New York legal community, says that Schneiderman made an advance toward her. When she rebuffed him, he slapped her across the face with such force that it left a mark that lingered the next day. She recalls screaming in surprise and pain and beginning to cry and says she felt frightened. She's asked to remain unidentified, but shared a photograph of the injury with the New Yorker. So what did Schneiderman say? He says, in the privacy of intimate relationships, I have engaged in role-playing and other consensual activity. Oh, that's what they're calling it now. I have not assaulted anyone. I have never engaged in non-consensual sex, which is a line I would not cross. So these stories are really, really wild. So one of the stories here is that there was one of these women who says that he called her his brown slave. Okay, when Schneiderman was violent, he often made sexual demands, according to one of the former girlfriends. He was obsessed with having a threesome and said it was my job to find a woman. He says he'd have nothing to look forward to if I didn't and would hit me until I agreed. She had no intention of doing this. She recalls, quote, sometimes he'd tell me to call him master, and he'd slap me until I did. Selvaratnam, who was born in Sri Lanka, has dark skin, and she recalls that he started calling me his brown slave and demanding that I repeat that I was his property. So, yeah, it sounds like a good liberal there. Okay. The abuse escalated. Schneiderman not only slapped her across the face, often 4 or 5 times back and forth with his open hand, he also spat at her and choked her. He was cutting off my ability to breathe, she says. Eventually, she says, we could rarely have sex without him beating me. In her view, Schneiderman is a misogynist and a sexual sadist. She says she often asked him to stop hurting her and tried to push him away. At other times, she gave in, rationalizing she could tolerate the violence if it only happened once or twice a week during sex. but the emotional and verbal abuse started increasing. The belittling and demeaning of me carried over into our non-sexual encounters. He told her to get plastic surgery to remove scars on her torso that had resulted from an operation to remove cancerous tumors. He criticized her hair and said she should get breast implants and buy different clothes. He mocked some of her friends as ditzes, and when these women attended a birthday celebration for her, he demanded that she leave just as cake was arriving. I began to feel like I was in hell, she says. Well, I mean, it seems like the hell would less be the criticism of your body and calling your friends ditzes, and more the smacking the crap out of you and suggesting that you are his slave. Apparently, Schneiderman routinely drank heavily, a bottle and a half of wine or more. He also took sedatives. Now, the thing that's hilarious about all of this is you'll recall that Schneiderman was a hero to the left until 5 minutes ago. Right now, listen, this is not the fault of everybody on the left who didn't know that Schneiderman was doing all of these things. But it is worthwhile noting that those who are held up as heroes very rarely are. Samantha Bee, of course, just a few weeks ago, was talking about how Eric Schneiderman was going to save the country from Donald Trump.
But there is hope on the horizon. A hero who stood up to democracy's nemesis before. Look up in the sky. It's a bird. It's a plane.
I'm Eric Schneiderman, and I'm the Attorney General of the state of New York. And with great power comes great responsibility.
Oh, my God. He's
Schneiderman, Schneiderman, does whatever a Schneider can. Only he can save us all.
No, it is not going to be one hero. It's not going to be a quick fix for this.
And this white mamba might be the one to save us.
We're going to save ourselves together.
You're going to save us.
We're going to do it. But that requires a lot of people other than state attorneys general getting engaged.
Please be my hero.
Okay, that is Samantha Bee. Okay, and this is what the left wants. The left was looking for a hero. They picked the wrong guy. It turns out they sort of picked the wrong guy. Oopsie daisy. Now, what is hilarious about this is that a lot of people in New York have known that Schneiderman is a kook for a really long time. One of those people is Donald Trump. So here is Donald Trump tweeting about Eric Schneiderman from not all that long ago, right? This is August 2013. Do you ever sometimes wonder if President Trump is actually a hero from the future who's sent back to the past to warn us all of what's to come? Because when you look at his Twitter feed, there's a tweet for literally everything. It's like Terminator 2. He's been sent from the future in order to protect us from Eric Schneiderman. This is him in August 2013. Quote, wow, I just found out that AG Schneiderman met with President Obama in Syracuse on Thursday and sued me on Saturday. Same as IRS, etc. And then he said that Schneiderman was a freak. Okay, but this is back in 2013. Thug politics, lightweight hack, Schneiderman meets with Obama on Thursday, then brings frivolous suit on Saturday. And there was more of this. He continued to tweet about Schneiderman. Governor Cuomo is right about one thing. Attorney General Eric Schneiderman does wear eyeliner. What the hell is up with him? And finally, is there one more? And then he says, Wiener is, this is the one that's amazing. This is from September 2013. Wiener is gone. Spitzer is gone. Next will be lightweight AG Eric Schneiderman. Is he a crook? Wait and see. Worse than Spitzer or Wiener. Well, there he is. There's the man from the future warning you about what was to come. And was Donald Trump ever right? He was indeed. It turns out that Eric Schneiderman is, in fact, the worst kind of human. Now,